You are listening to the On Purpose Podcast, your guide to living a more purposeful life. Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the On Purpose Podcast, episode 214, with one of our newest friends, Kate Chericello, who I'm excited to bring to you. She is a New York City-based performer, host, and certified fitness professional. As a performer, she's toured with the USO show troupe, Jersey Boys, and Broadway Tonight. She's the creator and host of Be the Good with Kate podcast. And in preparing for this, I uncovered a little bit of stuff that took me back to my childhood. So I hope you sit back, relax, and enjoy this interview with Kate. But before you do, don't let me forget, before you do, please like, subscribe, and share our podcast to help us continue to reach people around the world and put smiles on their faces by sharing inspiring, purposeful, and thought-provoking content. So sit back, relax, and enjoy our interview with Kate Chericello. Kate, welcome to the On Purpose Podcast, my newest friend.
Jerrod, thanks so much for having me.
So how are you doing now? You got a baby on the way.
Yes. 24 weeks pregnant as of this recording. Yes.
Oh, man. You excited, I'm guessing?
Yeah, excited. And it's just, a flurry of activity. I'm a performer and in the fitness world, so lots of things that are very physical. And so there's been a lot of adaptation, and every day is a new adventure with how we're feeling. But right now I feel like I have my energy back. So I'm taking advantage of this time for sure.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And what a great time to be going through that process, right? You got summer coming, you got the whole rebirth of spring and everything. So hopefully it's good energy for you. All right, Kate, before we get to the purposeful content, the real storytelling for our community, just like your fitness professional classes, I got to warm you up. I can't have you just jump in and do heavy stuff right away. So, Kate,
Absolutely.
you ready to get warmed up?
Here we go.
All right. You find yourself on a deserted island for the rest of your life. You get one food. What do you want to be eating?
First thing that comes to mind is watermelon. It's tasty, it's hydrating, it has fiber, it's good for you. Yeah, watermelon, why not?
Okay. Is this mom to be Kate speaking, or would younger Kate have said this too?
Oh no, I'm obsessed with watermelon.
Okay. All right.
And have been.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that mom to be Kate wasn't robbing younger Kate of a glorious pizza or something.
No, and I think like desert island, it's hot, it's sunny. Like watermelon is just like the ultimate summer food of on a hot day. Yeah.
Now, do you add salt to it ever?
Salt?
Yeah.
No. I add like cinnamon or peanut butter, like different combinations like that, but never salt. Yeah. You?
I have heard it, especially after like some endurance athletic competition. So you get in the water and
Ah,
the sugars and you add some salt to help hold it back in.
that would make sense. That would
Well,
definitely
see now
make sense.
so I'll
I mean,
make
I
sure,
know I've in the
go,
go ahead.
I'll make sure you get a shaker of salt on your island with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's needed. We need that sodium, especially on those hot island days.
That's right. We got to replenish what's going out. All right. You get one superpower. What would you have and why do you want it?
I was so hoping you wouldn't ask this one because I don't know. I feel like my brain just flies with that one. I feel like I need time to like figure out something where it's like the perfect blend of helping others and but not like how sometimes these superheroes it's like they can change too much. There's just I started to overthink it, but I did think about Bewitched, that old
Oh, yeah.
TV show, and she just wiggles her nose and can appear somewhere else. Okay, that's a shallow superpower, but that would be very convenient to have.
That
You could
would
just travel anywhere.
it would cut down your commute time.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Favorite book?
Multiple. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Love that. The Magic of Thinking Big. I've read that multiple times and highlighted it. My childhood was Harry Potter. So there's a long list. We'll stick with those three for now.
All right. And if you could have dinner with one person, who would it be and what would you want to ask them?
Mm. I think if I was able to bring a guest to this dinner, I would have my grandparents on my mom's side because my husband never got to meet them. And they're some of my favorite people that have ever been a part of my life, and I adore them. So to be able to like introduce my husband to them and get all their stories again, that would be really special.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Where were they from?
They're from originally Wisconsin and then Indiana throughout.
Okay, so you'd bring a good Midwestern vibe to the city.
Well, I'm from New Jersey, but my mom grew up in the Midwest. Yeah, and dad's Jersey, so we got a nice mix of straightforward and fast talking, but warm and loving Midwestern.
Sounds like a perfect combination.
Thanks.
All right, you feeling warmed up, Kate? We're ready to do some more heavy
Feeling warm.
lifting. All right, so the
Here we
first
go.
thing I want to ask you, I love and getting ready. I love seeing this quote on your stuff that you're a mix of poise, spunk with a side dose of sensible sass.
I've never had that quoted back to me before.
Where'd you come up with that at?
As being a performer and actor, it's really big, especially today's world, about branding and finding like words to kind of summarize you in just a few words, which of course is halfway to impossible to do because as human beings, we're so many things all at once. But I was thinking that kind of covers a lot. I've always been I always come across as a little older for my years, like as a child and whatnot, and that poise aspect. And being a dancer, I have the tall back and the posture and all of that. And the touch of sass, though, I think it kind of you can joke that it ties into that New Jersey upbringing or living in New York City for a dozen years. I come across as very warm and loving, but it's like, you can't walk all over me, and I'll put in a little one-liner here and there. So I think that, and that mixed with how I've been cast over the years has really like solidified that. I seem to get cast in that warm, loving, motherly role, or that sassy lawyer or dancer, like with a lot of the spunk and sass. So those are some words I just love, and it just seemed to fit.
So would you use those same words to describe your childhood?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't think the sass was there so much, but the other two for sure. I always had a lot of energy. I've always been very upbeat and that optimism. So that spunk and the poise was always there. That old soul description. A lot
Yeah.
of people have told me that as a kid too.
And what was it that let's stay on your childhood. What about raising allowed you to kind of lean into who you were? Because I love hearing like you how you described yourself is very confident. Like this is kind of who I was. What was it from your parents, your community, your circle that allowed you to step into who you really wanted to be?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, my parents were always just very open with when I've showed interest in something that they were very much like, okay, let's explore that. I loved playing soccer, so I played soccer. I loved dancing, so we ended up doing that. I know that mom saw an ad for a community theater, and we started to go to their shows when I was little. And then I ended up finding a love for theater and joining in when I got a little older. So I think a lot of it stemmed from them. And then just the kind of luck of being in a town that was very like filled with warm people and a school system that was very nurturing. I had a tiny little school, even though New Jersey is the most densely populated state. My town was only 1 square mile. So
Oh
my
wow.
elementary school was very small. And we had a regional high school, but my elementary school, I graduated with 9 people in my 8th grade. So we had that one on one attention. Like
Mm.
the teachers were very, like, they knew everybody, they knew everybody's parents. So they were all very much like nurturing your strengths with each student. So really benefited from that. And then just falling in with wonderful friends through high school and college. So every step along the way, and also just having a very faith-filled family, that would really helped as well, just like always having that sense of hope and faith, and like what's next will be somewhat positive despite the challenges along the way, all of that put
Mm,
together.
I love that. I'm gonna piggyback on that because I just finished. Um, we released an episode to kick off the month of June titled "What Did You Say?" And how I preface that is like if I was walking down the street and somebody said, "You're not good enough, you're not smart enough," I'd say, "What'd you say?" Like I would challenge them, like, "Why do you talk to me like that?" But sometimes we don't challenge ourselves if we tell ourselves that, right? So how did you, because you just talked about like encouraging yourself to continue moving forward. How did you develop what I say is positive self-talk that
Mhm.
encourage that risk taking, that encourage getting on the stage or auditioning? Talk me through the development of that encouraging self-talk.
It's funny. I'm not sure of one exact piece. I think it was just like the puzzle of a lot of things put together, the mix of encouraging parents that were, not pushy, but also very much like open to like, let's try this, but let's not give up right away if it's hard. The mix of just having those positive experiences in front of me, like that community theater I started in when I was 8. I was absolutely shy and nervous about it. In fact, my mom brought it up when I was 7 because I loved musicals so much. She said, "Do you want to try this out? They're doing a summer workshop." I said, "Oh, no, 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 no." And then the next year, she's like, "Well, here we go again, the summer workshop. Do you want to try it?" And I said, "Okay." So I'm not sure where that one piece came. I think it really was a conglomeration of a lot of just having those people in my life that were very positive influences. I'm very grateful I wasn't surrounded by a lot of that. I was much more surrounded by, "Oh, that's wonderful. Keep going." What fill
Mm.
in the blank of the subject. And same thing with school. And again, those teachers and having that small school really helped. And once I got into that community theater is when I really found more of the confidence of like getting on stage and not being shy, and that really, and that again, just the most amazing group of people, and it became this family and community for the next decade.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that's just a testimony to anybody in our community that's listening is when you pursue your dreams, when you put yourself out there, you encourage others to do it. It inspires others, right? And I think sometimes we want to sit back and we want to look for that inspiration externally when it's right here.
Yeah, yeah. And a really good point about saying like how it does affect others, even when we don't realize it. I'm sure you've experienced this too, where like years down the road, someone says, "Oh, back when you said something, that made an impression on me." Or when
Yeah.
I saw that you did fill in the blank, I was inspired to try that. And it's just a great thing for all of us to remember of like, we really do have an impact around of the people around us, even if they don't tell us right away or we never find out.
Right. Or if we don't even know they're watching,
Ah, yes,
right?
absolutely.
If we knew everybody was watching, we'd act a certain way. But if we don't think anybody's
Mm,
paying attention, right? But you're always leading. And I love that. And as a parent, that's one of the things I always said is I can't expect my kids to take risk and to try new things if they don't ever see me do it.
yeah,
So being a continuous learner as a parent is really kind of sets an expectation for the kids. They're like, hey, it's okay to keep going.
yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome.
absolutely.
So you've had a long career now in show business, I'd call it, right? Like USO, the Jersey Boys, Broadway Tonight. When did you lean into that and realize like this is something I can actually do?
I don't remember a time when I didn't. Maybe I joke about the blind confidence that we sometimes have, especially when we're younger, of just like, well, absolutely, it's going to work out. And sometimes that can lead you into who knows what of just not feeling successful, but regardless, you try and you're going to learn something, whether or not you stay in that first career path or that first idea that you walked into with that blind confidence, or if it leads you to then something else. But I think going forward, again, the whole idea of your show, again, that being living on purpose and following your passions, it's we will, if we don't try, what do we have then? At least try, because we'll always lead to something. So I don't remember not thinking it wouldn't work. Like I always remember, there was the time where I was like, oh, I think I'll be a doctor too, or this too. But it was never those were always just like fleeting, like, oh, because I love a lot of different subjects, they would all be fun. But really, my heart has just always been in performing. I love getting to just really make audiences feel something and learn something. And when you go to the theater, you sit and watch a movie, you're getting to check out from your life for a bit. You're getting to be just energized by someone or feeling happy by the joy, or you're getting a really good cry because it's so emotional, or we're learning something. I mean, think of like all of the movies or plays we've seen that's really like, wow, I never thought of something from that perspective before. And I think that's where art really does help so much. So all of those factors, it was just always something that I loved so much. And again, thankfully, I had an environment around me that was very nurturing of it. And along the way, I found the fitness world, which just really combines nicely into the performing world. They're both very like motivating industries when you're in it. And I get paid to stay in shape, so to speak, too, which is a side bonus. And the schedules complement each other. So just being able to every step of the way finding those passions, I've been really grateful for.
Yeah, man, that's an amazing breakdown. I really enjoy that. I love that you said learning new perspectives, because I think that's one of the things that we don't give the arts credit for, right? Is that they do broaden perspectives. So how did your perspectives broaden being able to travel while doing this? Like what were your big takeaways from the travel aspects?
Oh my gosh, it's like, where do you start with that? There's so much just from me and also from people around me, and even from like family members as well. My parents are in the baby boomers age, and much more of that, they grew up a certain way, and they've kind of, always had, it was pre-social media. And for even just them seeing me in different places, and I tell the stories, they're getting to be introduced to all these different people and worlds. And I think it's sometimes easier to use someone else as an example first, just seeing how their minds have expanded and continuing to learn. And it's, the old dog new tricks. It's like we're constantly learning. The second we stop learning is we die, whether it's literally or figuratively. So just seeing that happen, to again going with like the people around you who are affected by what you do, that is something that has definitely stood out to me for sure, with all the years and all the friends they've met who I've made. And then for me personally, I mean, just in any and every way, you're around people from such a variety of backgrounds. And unlike a lot of the, let's say, traditional careers where maybe you go to the same office every day and you're there from 9 to 5, all of those stereotypes in kind of that traditional mindset where we we're with the same people. Maybe you're not meeting people outside of your industry and you all talk about the same subjects because you're all there all day, every day. And granted, there's plenty of new energy that can come into that world. But in the performing side, you're constantly around new people. And these people are from all sorts of backgrounds. You have someone whose parents are paying their rent and they can audition all day, every day, and they don't even know what it is to have to hold down 3 jobs. And then you have someone who grew up like sleeping in his playhouse in his community because at one point he was homeless. So, and now he's on Broadway. So, like, you get such a wide range of people. And when you're in the performing world, something that's really neat about being in a play, especially, or musical, even more so than on set, though it happens on set too, is you're immediately in close quarters with people that you've never met before, usually, and you're there for hours on end. So in between rehearsing or when there's the downtime, you chat and you chat and you chat. So by the end of like day one, you already know all, like, it feels like you know everything about these people. And it's this really special bond that happens. But again, it lends to like, wow, you grew up not being terrified of saying that you were gay because of where you grew up, and then you have someone who's like, my family was in the circus, and you hear this whole story. And then, I mean, it's just like the stories, I could go on for hours about all the different backgrounds. And that's something that's really, really neat.
Well, talk me through. I love that, and I wanted to expand a little bit on the fact that you have to kind of get to know them
Mhm.
because your performance depends on me doing my part,
Yeah. There's a
right?
lot of trust, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So how and I think that's such good like segue for our just our community and our society in general. If we actually get to know people,
Mhm.
we'd really find out there's even when there looks to be no commonality on a surface, when you get beyond that surface, we're pretty much the same.
Yes. Yes. How much would be different in our country if that was the case? If we were all just listening to each other and finding those similarities, because like you said, they're there.
Yeah. And I love any kind of whether it's a team sport or arts, anything where I'd have to depend on somebody else.
Mm.
Right. So you have to have that trust. You have to have a little bit of accountability. Maybe I tell you, or you tell me, like, hey, Jerrod, you weren't on point here with these lines. Like, I need you to step up. Right. A lot of times we're afraid to have those difficult conversations too. When reality is, and that's what friendship is about, right? Like being accountable, being there for each other. Um, so I love that. And I love just kind of picturing you talking to all these variety of people, knowing that the review for the play or the movie or the show encompasses all of you.
Yeah,
What
absolutely. That's so on point.
what would you say if you had to pick one of your favorite roles, your most favorite role, what would it have been?
Um, was in love with the show from the first time I saw it years and years ago, and then to finally get to be in it. And it's funny, it's not like being a female in that show is not a lead role, but there's so much to it. And that energy of that show. And I think also like growing up in New Jersey, and my dad grew up like next door to the Four Seasons practically, and that whole era. I just love it. So being a part of that world was really magical.
Very cool. All right, I want to talk to you about a couple other things that were really interesting to me, and I want to get your thoughts on the real impact that one person can have. Because I think, especially in today's world, where we're fed all divisiveness, and people think everybody's so separate that we almost don't feel like we can make a difference anymore. Like things are just too big. Talk to me about how you believe one person can really make an impact.
I mean, it's just, we absolutely can. And making an impact, it can be of any size. You think of the stories we hear about, a teacher that changed the trajectory of one child's life. And that's the reason that this child succeeded in a career, or that one person who showed they cared and didn't even think twice about it. And that's the reason someone didn't commit suicide. There's so much and there's so many examples. And I think sometimes we just need to be reminded of these examples, which is also part of why I have the show now, Be the Good with Kate, and similar in vein to yours of just these people that are following their passions. And the whole thing with Be the Good with Kate is following your passions while making a difference. And something I ask each guest at the end is, if someone came to you and said, how do I make a difference? I want to, but I'm feeling overwhelmed, I don't know where to start. And to hear, now I think I've asked it to the last like 50 guests, and everyone's answers are of course unique in their own way, but they all come back to these few umbrella ideas of, number one, exactly like you just asked, yes, we can all make a difference. We all have the power to do something. And it's the do something. Just, I think we get
Mm.
paralyzed sometimes of like, well, I can't do everything and the problems are too big. It's like, go say hi to your elderly neighbor. That's huge. You just made such a difference in her life. Or one woman I interviewed, she went to an emergency shelter and started reading books to kids. And then that led her to find a completely different path in her life. And she started a nonprofit bringing pajamas to these kids because she realized there was a need there. It's finding that need in your community, or getting, hearing someone that you appreciate their mission and saying, hey, how can I help you do more of what you do? There's just so many ways, and it can feel overwhelming sometimes, but starting small, that's another one of the the umbrella topics that everybody keeps coming back to. It's the do something, it's the find what lights you up, find that passion, and start small, because otherwise it is overwhelming, but to start small, it's like these things grow and grow and grow for sure.
Yeah, I love it. Let's stay on the topic of Be the Good with Kate, the podcast. So you started it in the pandemic, and it's pretty amazing to me how many people I've crossed paths with that took what some people would say was a very dark time, a very scary time, and created something good out of it. So when during the pandemic did you realize, wait a second, I'm gonna do this?
So it was a mix of being all the sets and stages being closed and not having that on camera practice, so to speak, of being, doing auditions and classes. And then that mixed with all the news feels like it's negative news. And again, I'm an upbeat, optimistic person, and obviously we needed to hear what was going on in the world, but I was like, we need to also be reminded that there's still people doing good around us. And John Krasinski started Some Good News. Do you watch that? Yeah.
Oh, Jim from The Office?
Yes, yes. I loved it. I just was like, this is what we need. And people ate it up, and just showing good news stories. So when he stopped it, I started just posting like little videos of like, hey, look what I saw in the news today. Here's some good news stories. And then I thought, okay, if I want to keep this going, I need to figure out a game plan. And I needed to keep my, like, what I call on camera muscles going. I love interviewing people. I love hearing people's stories. So I thought if I could come up with something in this line, then the second I reach out to someone and say, will you do this? Then I'm stuck. I have to do it. That's a great thing about an interview podcast, right? It's like you schedule someone, so you have to show up. You can't say, oh, we don't really need an episode this week. It's like, no, someone else. It kind of goes back to also about the teamwork.
Right.
So someone else is relying on you. So I sent an email to two people that I thought, oh, like, wow, I love what they're doing. And people I knew. I said, I'm going to start this thing. Would you have any interest in it? I don't really know where it's going, but I'll ask you 5 questions. You can take them however you want, and we'll chat on camera, and I'll post it as a podcast and a YouTube video. And they both said yes. And all of a sudden, as soon as they say yes, we're like, okay, well, now we have to do it. We have to make it happen. And now we're on episode 80 something here.
Very good.
Oh, yeah.
What's the biggest thing you've learned from this process that, because it's a little different?
Yeah. I think as from the process of creating the podcast, I've learned that it's completely doable. Like, I'm not any kind of tech expert at all, but it really is straightforward. And today, I mean, it's 2023. You have in your hand almost all the time your phone that has an amazing camera. Like, you could be making a video at any time. For podcasts, you just have to talk. You don't even necessarily have to have a video. So it's very doable, and people do want to hear what you have to say. People want that lift. Like, for me, I know I've seen, like, for the good news aspect, like, people want that reminder that there's good people. And then what I've learned, especially from the process of talking to all these guests, is going back to pretty much what you asked me about, the one person making a difference. Just how, I guess, again, going with doable it is. One person in all of these stories, I think I now have interviewed over 100 people, if we count the ones that are already recorded. They're all making a positive difference, and none of them are super famous celebrities. None of them are multimillionaires, as far as I know. Maybe they are, I don't know. But not like, it's not like you look at them on paper, you're like, oh yeah, you're a multimillionaire. But they all have found a way. And barely anybody left college and was like, here's my passion, here's my purpose, I'm going into it, I'm not going to change at all. Most of these people found their purpose and doing good in the world through a whole bunch of winding roads on this journey. So that was something that was really eye-opening, and just such a wonderful reminder, especially like being a performer. It's a constant roller coaster. You're being told no more than yes. You're getting rejected so often. And to hear all of these people talk about their challenges and that they haven't given up, it's just so invigorating and just, I feel like so needed for the soul, sometimes to hear these stories and get these reminders.
It's so funny you say that because I will tell you, at least from my deal, I feel selfish doing my podcast because after I talk with people, I feel great.
Yeah, I totally know what you
Right?
mean.
I feel great. I'm like, oh man, I feel good. I hope the audience gets the same feeling, which I think they do after 4 years. But yeah, and I think you're right. I think it's therapeutic to have places you can go where you know you're going to get inspiring, thought-provoking, maybe a different idea or perspective from people that are actually choosing to step into purpose, choosing to step into
Yes.
intentionality.
Yes. And do you find this too, that even when sometimes you're about to interview a guest and you're like, it seems like a very unique industry or a very unique kind of bio. You're like, I don't know if everyone will relate to this, like all the listeners. And by the end of the interview, it's like, oh my gosh, everything is just so universal. Even in a totally different industry, there's still a way to relate to all sorts of things across the board.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think what's cool about that is for me, you kind of challenge the listeners to remove any of excuses they're telling themselves,
Mm.
right? Because it is universal. It doesn't matter, like you said, if you're a trust fund kid who's had everything handed and doesn't know being hungry, or you're always hungry. Human needs are pretty much the same, right? And we can all make a difference if but what I love in your stories as well is we don't find our purpose in life sitting waiting for it to show up, right? And like I tell people, like if you want to sit on your front porch with a cup of lemonade on a hot summer day and wait, purpose isn't getting delivered by any of those trucks. It's going to look a lot like work, a lot like getting out and meeting people and trying things. And that's why I love people from so many different backgrounds that come forward. And the commonality that I derive is we're all led to our purpose when we're in action,
Mm,
right? When we're taking those
absolutely.
risks, when we're putting ourselves in new circles, when we're putting ourselves in places to grow, we're led to purpose. It's very seldom just shows up.
Absolutely. And taking the risks, that's so huge. And it's going to look different to everybody, right? Like taking a risk for someone is simply going out of their house and talking to a stranger. That is a
Yep.
huge risk, right? Because it's so out of their comfort zone. And to someone else, it's, a whole other level of interaction. So expanding your comfort zone, absolutely taking those risks, doing the work. Yeah, but it's so worth it.
It is. And changing your circle. I'm a big on circle of five, right? There's that old adage out there that you're the sum of the five people you spend the most time with. And by doing shows like yours and putting out information like this, you get to insert yourself into people's circles if they choose, right? So now one of your five can be a dreamer, a believer, a doer, which can light the fire for you.
That's great. That's great. And it really is like, when you're interviewing for a show, it's so cool. Like we get to meet people from all over the world and learn about careers that I know some I hadn't even heard of before.
Talk to me about success. Because you said you're in some of the stuff I was researching says you have taught you about the meaning of success working in some of the industries you've worked with. What does success look like for you for your life? What does success look like?
That's, I feel like, something that I'm constantly grappling with in my head. And it's not oh, I figured it out. Now I can give you the answer, right? It's a constant process. And as a performer, I don't feel like I have hit the definition of success yet. But then that leads you back to, well, what the heck is success? I get to wake up every day and choose to go to auditions or choose to take a dance class or choose not to. And just having that choice is success in of itself, because
Mm,
so many people don't get to choose, and they feel like they have to take a certain job because of the money or because of hours or because of so many reasons. So I feel enormously successful in that I have the most loving people around me, circle of five times five times five times five, just so
right.
many wonderful people and so much love, and all of those qualities that you can never find just through having the career that you quote unquote want, or the house that you maybe want, the material. It's the people, the love, the support, right? Like, baby is healthy, I'm healthy, all of these amazing things. But then as a performer, I feel like, okay, well, there's so much more that I know I want to get to, and that my heart just like burns to get to do. And so I don't know what the next couple of years holds. And I hope that it just continues to grow and not plateau in that field. But that is a very long and windy answer to your response that I hope somewhere in there is a response that I feel like it's just a really hard definition. And I feel so successful in some ways, and I feel like I haven't reached where I want to be in others. And I think that also is okay. And it's easy for me to say that now. And then, something will make me burst into tears or scream or want to just punch something. And then, the next day you'll be back to, well, hey, look at this amazing life. It's wonderful. So, and I'm sure that many people can relate to that too.
No, I absolutely love it. And like just listening to it, I'm like, oh, you're enjoying your process. You're
Guys,
finding
I'm trying.
success in the process, not necessarily the outcomes.
Mm. And that is something that I want to always. And is it 100% of the time? No, because it's so hard not to focus on the outcomes. But when I can remind myself of exactly what you just said, the process, and then that is much more rewarding and fulfilling. And it's a better mindset across the board.
Well, and reality is our life is a process, right? Like every day we get to grow a little bit, we get to change. Just the process. If I only value today, if I achieved a certain outcome,
Mhm.
and maybe I got distracted, maybe life threw me a curveball and I didn't even get to work on an outcome. Well, today's not wasted. There's success in whatever I had to do.
Absolutely.
So I love your answer, and that you haven't hit success yet as your performer, but you've been successful in taking a dance class. You're successful in doing this next thing. Because I think sometimes we get confused that if we have big goals and big dreams and we're not there yet, that we're not successful.
Mhm.
But if I would argue that if you're waking up and doing anything towards a dream, you're a success.
See, exactly, exactly. And that's so important to remind ourselves, because we are in a very outcome focused
Mm-hmm.
world. That's absolutely, it's like, well, how much did you make this year? Or how many hours did you put in this year? And it does defeat that purpose of life, which is that constant journey. And like I said before, when you stop learning and growing, you die somehow or other. So
Yeah.
it is celebrating the journey and the process.
So we'll share that with our community. I think that's a fantastic segue then. As someone that's told no a lot, you're in an industry that's told no, 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 you get a yes, no, no, you get a yes. How do you remind yourself to find the success in the struggle or in the process?
I mean, some days are better than others at it, some days you really feel it, but there's definitely a mentality that you get as a performer, or at least it's very helpful to get. I see people who don't, and that just like feel completely broken down after every audition. And that's just, I don't know how you can survive this industry if you take everything to heart. And easier said than done. I'm the kid in school where if the teacher said be quiet, I would burst into tears. Like, I don't take no well. But there's something about being able to put on like the hat of like, this is the performer world, this is how it's going to be, I'm going to go, I'm going to show up. And there's a way that a lot of actors put it, it's that when you audition, you're getting a chance to perform. So don't think of it as this is my interview for a job. Think of it as this is a chance to get to do what I love. Even if it's only for 60 seconds, I'm getting to perform for these people. I'm getting to do what I love. And that is something that, a lot of people will say, and it's a great reminder of, yeah, if you put that perspective on to go into the audition, it helps so much. And the other thing is just really understanding that it's not you. Like, yeah, sure, we've all had terrible auditions when it is us, but most of the time it's just like you're not the one they were looking for, or the role that you thought that you were being considered for is already cast and they don't tell you this. I mean, there's a lot that you just don't know in the production process. There's a cliche joke in the industry is like, you look like the casting director's ex-wife, so you're not going to get the role. I mean, just like the idea of there's so much out of our control. So
Yes.
we control what is in our control, and that's showing up, and that is giving our best performance. And then you have to say goodbye to it. And it's funny, just as a little side with this, people who aren't in the entertainment industry will often, you know, if I see somebody for coffee 2 weeks later, be like, so how was that audition that you were going to that day? And I'll be like, wait, what audition was that? And when you get to that point, I think it's a really good sign, because 2 weeks have gone by. You should have let it go at this point. And that's kind of how you have to be as a performer. You need to love the role enough to care, to show up, to give it your all, but you can't love it and care so much that you're going to be completely distraught when you probably get the no. And it sounds like that can be a sad way to look at it, but really it's the helpful way to just be able to keep going day after day with the no and the no and the no, if that makes sense.
I love it. And what I heard there is you got to perform. So they're evaluating your performance, not evaluating you as a human being.
Yes. And that is, again, I've seen actors fall into like, oh, it's me. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not fit enough. I'm not this enough. My dress was the wrong color. It's like, no, it's none of that. You separate yourself from the performing. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so here's the cross what you said back before, is that people with completely different backgrounds can have the same result. Right. So like you said, you got to separate yourself from the outcome. So here's something for you, is training fighters, which I did for quite a while, mixed martial arts fighters. One of the biggest talks we had to do is to share with them, don't worry about the outcome. Everybody wants to win. But what you got to do is prepare, show up, and just do your best. Outcomes, there's so many variables that affect whether a casting director likes you or doesn't like you, whether it's the right dress or the wrong dress, whether you show up and the referee in the fight makes a bad call, whether the judges do it. But as long as you show up and do your best, we don't have to worry about outcomes because we're happy with the process.
Yeah. And that's all you can do, right? If you showed up, that's already a lot more than most of the people in this world are doing, right? You know, how many people aren't following passions or feeling stuck, right? You just showed up. That's already huge. Nevertheless, showed up and did your best. Then, like, what else? Exactly. What else can you do?
And the only thing you can add to that is you prepared to show up, right? So you took the dance classes, you did the acting stuff, you did the extra running, whatever the case may be. You prepared, then you showed up, you did your best. Yeah, I can walk around with my head held high. It's not up to me if you're picking it, right?
Yeah.
All right. So one thing I saw that I got to know about is your burning desire to be a Hallmark regular. Is that still true?
It's 100% so true, Jerrod. Oh my gosh. I spent so many years like being careful that I didn't like say that too much, because I was, you know, I'm like, I know some people kind of like roll their eyes a little bit with Hallmark because it's all like of a very similar vibe. And honestly, I finally came to the conclusion I would love to show up on a set every day where I know that the outcome is going to be making people feel happy at the end, right? Hallmark movies, you know what's going to happen. They're going to fall in love. The dog is going to be okay. The kid's going to be cancer free. Like, they're going to be happy at the end. And I have so much respect for actors who are doing like the heavy legwork of the deep roles. And, you know, there's just the most amazing actors out there. And honestly, I am so content though being in that happy world of Hallmark. Yes, if you said that for the next 10 years I could show up on Hallmark sets and bring Christmas and joy and all of that, so yes, please. So absolutely, I love it.
Oh, and here's why I gotta share that with you. One of our grandpas, Grandpa Tom in our family, he is an amazing contrast of television watching. When you're around him, he's either watching really, really old black and white cowboy movies,
Nice.
some off-grid type living, or he's sitting for hours with the Hallmark Channel. So when I saw that you wanted to be a regular Hallmark person, I thought, man, I've got to ask so that we know when you make it, Tom can sit in his chair and watch and be like, we know her.
Well, I cannot wait for the day that Grandpa Tom gets to see me in a Hallmark movie then.
All right. But now one more thing before we let you go, I've got to confess, Kate, that in preparing for this, I had to relive a little bit of my childhood drama.
Okay, go ahead.
Specifically, I saw a few pictures of you acting as Annie. It took me back to like 10-year-old Jerrod when my little sister Jill had Annie in the VCR nonstop for weeks because we lived in Germany. We had no cable television, so only the VCR is what we had. So what was it like playing Annie?
An 11-year-old's dream come true. Well, I did at least 11-year-old me dream come true.
Was it truly a dream?
I was. So what happened was the theater has a traveling group, or did back then, and we would go different places and do songs from different shows. And I was the Annie track for that. And we had the dog and everything. So absolutely getting to belt out Tomorrow at the top of my lungs with the red curly wig and the dog. Oh, but also God bless my parents, because I also had Annie and the VCR on repeat.
And did you get to travel doing that one too?
Yeah, that was local travel through the state of New Jersey. But yeah, that was neat. And then eventually the theater did do Annie, the full production. But at that point, I was too tall to play Annie. So I was Pepper the orphan and the dance captain for the orphans.
Oh,
so I was
wow.
drilling the orphan dances, and that started my dance captain journey that has lasted to this day as well.
Did you feel like a true superstar back in your Annie days?
Oh, absolutely. Because you were performing in these places, and the little kids, I say, as I was only like 11 myself, would come up to you and be like, Annie, can I get a picture?
Well, you're gonna bring a smile to my sister's face because she's also our editor for the show, so she'll get to hear this in the background and probably send me some kind of clip of Annie dancing somewhere.
I hope she does. You fully remember your childhood there.
Oh man, do I ever. Well, Kate, it was an honor getting to talk with you and to share your story with our community. Where can they stay in touch with you and kind of follow along and support your journey?
Oh, well, thank you so much, Jerrod. This was such a pleasure. My website is katechericello.com, and I am at positively_Kate on Instagram.
Well, thank you again so much for joining us. We can't wait to watch what's next for you, and I look forward to Tom letting me know he sees you big on the Hallmark screen.
Thanks. Let's keep putting that energy out into the world. I can't wait for it.
Thanks so
Jerrod.
much.
This is wonderful.
Thank you. And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.